Astroharmonics. Today we're going to look at Neptune. Okay, so Neptune is moving steadily and slowly towards Aries, this first degree of the zodiac, first degree of Aries, and it's coming out of Pisces, which is this, how I've described it, the coastless ocean, this vast expanse of infinity and eternity. And yet Aries, the next sign, is all about the individual ego, right? About the self, the identity of the individual. And so how you squeeze infinity into one person is a very interesting question, all right? Maybe that's all of us. Maybe that's rebirth. Right? We got the whole cycle of the zodiac, from the birth, the explosion of the seed in the darkness of the earth. Darkness being a very fertile place, right? And up it comes, and something grows. And I often think of the dandelion, the sky clock. And at the end of the cycle, all these little parachutes of potential life blow and catch on the wind and start the whole cycle again. Neptune, moving into Aries, is a kernel of energy of this action happening, a snapshot of it. I mean, it's no snapshot because it's very slow moving, but relatively speaking, over millennia, this is what's going on. Is that the magnitude and the massiveness of infinity, unfathomable eternity, is being squeezed into a self, an individual, an entity. So here we go with Howard Sasportas' fantastic book, The 12 Houses, link below, Amazon link below if you're interested. And Howard Sasportas maps out this book with the first house combining with Aries. Right? There's a certain correlation you might find. There are astrologers that would argue against that point, but for me, there's certainly a connection, a correlation between the first house and Aries. They have the same vibe, as does Mars with Aries. The planet, house, and sign, they do correlate. They do have factors that connect them. And so when we have this situation that we do in February coming up now, where Neptune goes into Aries, let's see what Howard says about this situation. Neptune in the first, also in Aries, right? In the first house in Aries, Neptune diffuses the boundary between a sense of the self as a separate entity and other people. In extreme cases, those with Neptune in the first in Aries are like mirrors. They just reflect who or whatever is in front of them, because they often derive their identities from what other people want or need them to be. Others may look to them for their salvation. At last, here is a person who really understands and appreciates me, and who is just naturally everything that I need in another person. However, the honeymoon is over when they observe that Neptune in Aries in the first opens up, adjusts and adapts in a similar fashion to whoever is around, not just to them. We might rightfully praise first house Aries Neptunians for their exquisite sensitivity to other people, but we might also concern ourselves with the lack of a clear or well-defined sense of their own identity and direction in life. Not having crystallized a sense of self, they appropriate someone else's. And so when we look at this from a macro perspective, from a collective POV point of view, societal and culturally, we're talking about people that offload their identity, their autonomy, to groups or cults or belief systems, ideologies, political persuasions, religions, etc., philosophies, and they reduce their individuality at the expense or in favor of this big wider picture. So at the first degree of Aries, that sense of self is yet to establish itself. And then again, looking at it from that big picture macro bird's eye view of a planetary sense of humanity, this decoupling, disconnecting with unhealthy groupthink, the herd mentality, is perhaps what Howard is getting at here. In general, the first house thrust to distinguish the self as a distinct and unique individual conflicts with Neptune's tendency to dissolve and merge back into a state of non-differentiated wholeness. In general, the first house, or Aries, their thrust to distinguish the self as a distinct and unique individual conflicts with Neptune's tendency to dissolve and merge back into a state of non-differentiated wholeness. Perhaps at this point we can talk about, flags and passports and national identities, right, or religious identities, or this groupthink herd mentality, right? Just when they build up something or establish a more solid footing, events seemingly conspire to erode or undermine the foundations, and down comes the structure. For whatever the reasons, a person with Neptune in the first is being asked to sacrifice or let go of the sense of being a separate self. This kind of selfless or ego state is the goal of many mystical seekers. And this placement of Neptune may be a natural in this respect, but one might rightfully inquire whether or not Neptune in this house ever had a sense of self to relinquish in the first place. Another phrase that springs to mind at this point is spiritual bypass, right? Those people who crave to be mystics or spiritual leaders, very appropriate, where they want to relinquish the ego, this sense of self that is basically the vessel on the coastless ocean, right? If a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there, does it make any sound? Will you need the individual, the subject, the self, in order to reference what is happening? It gets a bit existential at this point, but let's keep going. The problem may stem from the earthly bonding with the mother. We cannot grow separate and self-reliant unless another person has loved us enough to make us feel that we are worthy of being a somebody. A symbiotic closeness to the mother is the first stage of this process. In the early years, we need a close, caring, good enough mother in order to develop the courage and strength to grow into an autonomous individual. Very interesting psychological area of study, talking about the mother wound. I strongly recommend, if people are interested in this paragraph especially, look into the mother wound, where there are consequences for the lack of unconditional love, at a childhood stage, infant stage. If this does not happen, if the love does not happen, we are not only afraid to be ourselves, but we will keep searching for that perfect fit with another person, which we didn't have as children, adjusting ourselves all out of proportion to achieve this. But the problem is that if we are not enough, then nobody else is ever enough either. However, if as children we are secure with the mother's love, we eventually begin to feel that we can do with a little less of it. Perhaps we don't need that illusion and delusion that these days of Pisces, Neptune in Pisces, has as a shadow side. This holistic oneness of eternal bliss. Well, if we have that secure love as from the early stages of unconditional love, then perhaps this isn't such a desperation, a desperate goal for the individual. We eventually feel that we can do with that a little less of it. Besides, we want to explore more of the environment, venturing out and experimenting with things. At this stage, mother must be willing to let go of us, otherwise we may be made to feel guilty about our need for separateness. Stay within the group, stay within the the family, don't venture, don't explore. You know, this time we're in now, right, is about that risking stepping outside of the boundaries of the groupthink and the herd mentality. With Neptune in the first house, something could have gone askew at either end of these two important stages of symbiosis and separation. If there was no secure enough tie with the mother, then they might be afraid to develop a strong individual identity. But if they were forbidden by her to separate, they may never have had the chance to find out what or who they are in their own right, to individualize, right? Aries. With this help of therapy, or any of the many forms of self-exploration available today, it's never too late to start. With Neptune in the first, the personality or style may embody any of the, or Neptune in Aries, I must always say, the personality or style may embody any of the possible connotations of Neptune, while the diffuseness may make them appear mysterious or enigmatic. Some wander aimlessly through life. Many too easily slip into the role of martyr and then feel resentful if others take advantage of them. Some are fair game for anyone who offers to save or rescue them. A few may turn to hard drugs and alcohol in an attempt to alleviate the harsher realities of life and find themselves worse off in the end. Escapism, right? It's the scourge of our epoch. Everybody's escaping, whether it's golf or alcohol or TikTok videos, who knows what. You know, people are trying to get away. It's, again, the delusion and illusion aspects of Neptune. Hollywood is a very interesting example. Who are the most celebrated and highest paid people of our society? The people who pretend in Hollywood. However, there are many positive ways to embody Neptune, because they can encompass realms beyond the ordinary ego borders of existence. They may be able to give expression to collective feelings and images through some sort of artistic medium. The vision may be truly inspiring to other people who are unable to see so easily into these dimensions. And this placement often appears in the astrology chart of excellent counselors and healers. The diffuse boundaries of Neptune enable them to tune into and help other people. Some dedicate their whole lives to uplifting or redeeming the planet. If Neptune is close to the ascendant house, the person may never really have wanted to be born in the first place. They will need to learn to say yes to life, to counter-effect a persistent longing to return back to the oceanic totality of the womb. Alternatively, these desires may be projected forward in a spiritual direction, giving rise to the mystical longing for higher states of consciousness. You know, on the topic of suicide, I was a school teacher for many, many years, and it was always a harrowing statistic to understand that, yeah, children, teenagers are committing suicide in exponentially increasing numbers. There's one particular example that always comes to mind when this sort of topic arrives, that, you know, a really a guy, a 15-year-old boy with really impressive leadership qualities. He was squished and squashed by the institution, to keep it general, and he killed himself. I was blown away by it. Anyway, let's continue here. With Neptune in the first, Neptune in Aries, some confusion may attend the birth and early years of life. I've seen this placement in the charts of people whose actual births were shrouded in mystery or kept secret from others. Early conditions may not contribute to their sense of trust and security in life, as if they are called upon to sacrifice the degree of love and attention that is normally bestowed on the newborn infant. Again, unconditional love, right? Illness at an early age could further accentuate the tenuous hold they have on life in their bodies. And so this is another pioneering area where the paradigm shifts, right? Where we make the connection between physical ailments and for physical ill health, and a connection with non-physical aspects such as emotional well-being, mental health and stability, the spiritual balance of the individual. How is this connecting to people's health? And you go back to my parents' generation, and the moment the baby was born, it was taken away from the mother and put into an isolated, what do you call it, fish tank, pot. But you see the pictures from the 50s or whatever, and these kids were traumatized at a really deep level at their most vulnerable time, and therefore, what are the knock-on effects? Do they therefore have these attachment bonding problems where they want to connect with a flag or a religious symbol or a herd or a group or something that gives them that sense of identity that was perhaps lacking from their childhood? Very interesting areas of psychology. It's coming through. Brilliant book called Why Love Matters by Sue Gerhardt. Let's see if I can find a link for you. But really, it sounds like a woo-woo wishy-washy book, but it's really scientific about the chemicals that we have, the serotonin, dopamine, adrenaline, and cortisol around. And cortisol is very interesting. At high doses over extended periods, chronic levels, it corrodes. It's almost like but that corrosion, it's almost soothing, because the trauma subsides as the cortisol corrodes the organic tissue. And so, as we get to the close of this video, here we have the slideshow that's running alongside. Guide to the New Frontier. Okay, so as I've said before, Pluto into Aquarius, Neptune and Saturn into Aries, as we're looking over here, but also Uranus into Gemini. This is big shifts on a collective conscious level, societal. Your journey begins. First preview, March the 30th, October 21st, 2025. Neptune briefly comes into Aries, then it regresses, and back in 26, just a couple of weeks away. And then February the 20th, Saturn conjuncts Neptune at 0 degrees to join Neptune in Aries. Finding your personal story. Where is your 0 degrees Aries? 0 degrees Aries. The 14-year story of emergence will unfold in a specific area of your life. The house in your birth chart where 0 degrees Aries is located is about to get a hard reboot. That individual sense of self. This is where you will be personally challenged to move from dissolution to definition, to fight for your ideals, to stand in your personal truth, and to pioneer a new beginning. Reflect on the themes of this house, whichever one it is. This is the personal frontier where your spiritual warrior has been called to emerge, the courage to emerge. The shift from Neptune to Pisces to Neptune into Aries is a necessary of challenging evolution from passive dreaming to an active creation. It is the era of the individual pioneer, the spiritual warrior, and the authentic creator tasked with forging a new path from the ground up. Imperfections and all. The era of what if is over. The age of what can I do right now. The fire of action. The inferno of drive and focus and motivation. Fire sign. It's a call to embody the courage required. Fire in the heart, or la cour, French for the heart, required to believe our individual actions may make a difference and to manifest our most deeply held ideals in the real world. And interestingly, that one of the shadow sides of Aquarius is losing that sense of self to the groupthink, to the cult or the politics or whatever it is. But this Neptune in Aries counterbalances that really, really healthily, in my opinion. A few sources for further reading. So yeah, shoots are coming up. Healthy shoots of rebirth and growth. We'll stop there for today. We'll see you next time.